This was supposed to be a special day for this young man named Matthew Mitchel, who had come back from training to be a Marine. It was a day that was special to him for many reasons. He got to celebrate with his friends and family, as well as finally achieve this milestone of graduating with his peers. He had worked very hard for this moment. He even had to pull extra hours to study while he enlisted in the Marines at the same time. Matthew was extremely proud of his accomplishments. As he walked into the room full of his peers and their friends and families, he could feel their curious eyes on him as he walked with his Marine uniform. Many of Matthew's peers and classmates approached him to pat him on the back and wish him good luck, and many more came and thanked him for his service to their country. Whatever it was, most people, friends, families, and onlookers had a sense of awe and pride when they looked at Matthew. For many of these people at the graduation ceremony, it would be the last time they saw each other as their paths were about to diverge. Many would be headed to university, many others would be in full-time employment. There was a sense of finality in the air as friends hugged each other as if for the last time. As the crowd of people in the graduation hall laughed and talked, an air of silence came over the room when the principal of the school walked in. He was known by students to be a very strict man who followed the rules with no exceptions. During the school year, he was known for always making sure his students were in check. He made sure the classrooms were clean, the hallways were clear, and anyone seen breaking even the smallest of rules got some kind of punishment. Principal Brown was feared by all, and no one dared challenge his authority. Even now at the graduation ceremony, he was making sure all the chairs were aligned and in order. He made sure that all caps, gowns, and hoods for the ceremony were neat and ready. He went from student to student, making sure their robes were worn properly. When the meticulous principal got to Matthew, he barely looked at him or acknowledged him in any way before moving on to the next student. Matthew felt uneasy in his chest, but tried and succeeded in calming himself down. The graduating class were ushered to their seats and were ordered to sit in alphabetical order of their last names. Matthew sat with his peers and they all settled in to listen to the speech from Principal Brown. He talked about the values of the school and the standards that the school upholds. He congratulated the class for their relentless hard work in achieving higher education and creating chances for more opportunities. After a few minutes, it was finally time to call out the names so the students could go up on stage and receive their diplomas. The principal started calling the last names of the students in alphabetical order. Matthew waited patiently for his turn as he heard the names being called. As the principal finished off with the names starting with the letter L, Matthew sat straighter in his chair as the M names were called. He heard Marshall, Martin, Miller, and Morris, and then the principal started mentioning the names beginning with N. Matthew Mitchel had not been called. He already knew he wouldn't be called and began to get a little uneasy. However, he had been trained in the Marines to remain calm under serious pressure, so this wasn't something he couldn't handle. He sat and watched as other people got on the stage to receive their diplomas. Meanwhile, the crowd and audience had noticed that Matthew had been skipped. They glanced at him curiously as he sat and looked straight ahead. Matthew's mother thought it must have been a mistake at first, but as the names of graduating students continued to be called out and Matthew was still seated, she concluded that they must be saving Matthew for last. Perhaps he was going to be given a special ceremony because of his service. Meanwhile, Matthew already knew he wasn't getting a special call at the end. He knew he wasn't going to mount the stage and receive his award. As he sat in the audience and saw his peers go up on the stage, he began to think back on his life. He had not had the easiest life growing up. He wasn't from a rich home and had lived in poverty for a while. He remembered those days in elementary school where he would only have a peanut butter sandwich for lunch every day because it was all that his family could afford. This prestigious private high school he was graduating from was very important to him because he got accepted through a scholarship, whereas most of his peers were rich and affluent enough to afford this school by themselves. He wasn't quite that lucky. He recalled how hard he had to work to keep his grades up at this school and how he never really knew what he wanted to do with his life after graduation. That was what urged him to sign up for the Marines even while he was still in high school. He found that he fitted into the program and the recruitment tests and assessments were not too hard for him. His personality and behavior were ideal, and he found purpose as he enrolled in the Marines. Even during the training, he knew many others who found it too grueling and could not continue and ultimately dropped out, but not Matthew. He loved the challenge and excelled in all areas, even the most difficult parts. The recruitment process was not easy. It tested his mental strength, emotional tolerance, as well as physical endurance. It was one of the most challenging yet rewarding things he had ever done. That was how he knew he had made the right decision to enlist in the Marines, and he was very proud of that decision. That was why, at the rehearsal ceremony a few days prior, he had spoken to the principal about how he wanted to wear his Marine's uniform to the ceremony. Principal Brown had told him that it was against the school policy to be part of the graduation ceremony without wearing the cap and gown. He informed Matthew that under no circumstances would he allow him to mount the stage and accept his diploma if he wasn't dressed in the cap and gown. Matthew had pleaded with the principal and had explained how much of an honor it would be if he could graduate in his Marine's uniform, but Principal Brown dismissed him and told him it wasn't going to happen. As the last of the names were called out and the principal gave his closing speech, it finally dawned on Matthew's family that he wasn't going to be called on stage. The entire room muttered and looked at Matthew. He held his head high, and he did not let the whispers get to him. The ceremony was almost over, but the class valedictorian was to give a short speech, and then the graduating class would walk out. The valedictorian was a girl called Amanda. She read through her speech and looked out over the audience and saw Matthew seated there without a cap and gown and a diploma. She decided to include him in her speech. And now, I would like to give a special recognition and dedication to a student who could not get on stage today, but is worthy of all the applause. He is an incredibly brave and hardworking student who not only worked so hard in school, but also devoted himself to the Marines. He is truly a testament to hard work. Thank you for inspiring us every day, and thank you for your service, Private Matthew Mitchell. As she finished her speech, the whole room stood up, faced Matthew, and clapped. In that moment, Matthew was happier than he had ever been, and it made up for him not being able to get on stage. He nodded humbly and accepted the applause. Once the ceremony was over, many people came up to Matthew again, this time expressing their disappointment and surprise that the principal did not allow him to receive his award on stage. One person even stated that in a neighboring school, there was a girl who enlisted in the military early and was able to graduate with her uniform. The opinions surrounding this topic were divided. Many believe that Matthew should have been able to walk up the stage with his Marine uniform, as it was a representation of what he and others like him have sacrificed for their nation. It was a thing of honor and pride to be able to wear that uniform. However, some people were of the opinion that wearing the cap and gown was a school policy for a reason, and it made everyone equal on that day, regardless of what grades they graduated with or whether or not they were enrolled in the Marines. Why should he be treated specially? We are all graduating and we all worked hard. It's not just about him, it's about all of us. And I think that's why the policy is a good idea, someone had whispered as the discussion went on. Matthew was not a fan of all the attention he was receiving and was in a hurry to leave. Just then, Principal Brown approached him and his family. They looked at him with uncertainty. Listen, Matthew, I have had a number of people approach me because they think I have a personal vendetta against you. I do hope you don't feel that way. I was simply following the school policy, and I can't give exceptions to one person. I personally am very proud of your accomplishments, but the rules are the rules, and I hope there are no hard feelings. I have your diploma here with me, the principal said and handed it over to Matthew. For the first time, Matthew spoke. Thank you, Principal Brown. I know you have to follow the rules. In the Marines, they teach us integrity and discipline, which is something you emulate well. I am proud to wear my uniform, and I still stand by my decision. Thank you, sir, for being honest with me. The two shook hands and parted ways. Matthew could definitely understand Principal Brown's point of view, and he didn't hold it against him. He was just happy he got his diploma, graduated, and was looking forward to the next stage of his life. He was surrounded by friends and family who were beaming with pride from ear to ear. He took pictures with his friends, families, and colleagues, making sure to hold his head high as well as wear his uniform with pride.